Hey guys, it's Bria with Capture Your Days, and I wanted to show you a quick tip that you can use in Lightroom. Lightroom is the photo editing and organizing program that I recommend to my students. I want to show you how you can use Lightroom to evaluate your photo's exposure. In my course, Love Your Photos 101, I teach my students how to obtain good exposure, proper exposure in their photos, um, and how to take photos that look good coming out of the camera. They have good color and good exposure. But it's always helpful to be able to evaluate our photos, and Lightroom gives us an objective way to do this, which is great. It involves taking a look at your histogram up here. This is just a visual representation of all the tones in the image, the highlights, the shadows are represented on the left, the highlights are represented on the right, and what we call the midtones are represented in the middle. So this would be an example of a shadow area over here. This would be an example of a highlight area, and as we can see, this photo has a wide range, a wide tonal range is what the word that we use to describe that. So it has bright highlights, it has dark shadows, the lighting is not even. In fact, the light here was coming clearly from behind my subjects. It's backlit with the sun beginning to set there in the background. So I've already done most of my editing on this photo, but just to show you this trick, one of the first things that I'll do when I bring a photo into Lightroom is check my overall exposure, and here's how I do that. We're in the Develop module in Lightroom, and there are two little arrows right here. You can click on them, and those will reveal areas of the photo that are overexposed / blown out is a term that we use to describe that, or underexposed or clipped is the term we use to describe these dark areas in the shadows. So I can click these two little triangles to see which areas of my photo are either blown out or clipped. And then I have to decide, is that acceptable or is that not acceptable? So in this case, I do find it acceptable. In most cases, if you're shooting directly into the sun like this overexposure is going to be unavoidable, and the fact that it's not taking over the whole sky actually isn't too bad. Over here, again, I feel okay about this, but I could tweak it if I wanted to. If you have areas of shadow that are extreme, they can be distracting because they kind of pull your eye toward it like a black hole, but I don't think that small area is going to be a big problem. I like how the shadows sort of surround my subjects here, and it kind of draws your eye toward them. But here's another trick. If you're adjusting your exposure, this is your exposure slider, which means to the right is brighter, to the left is darker. This controls, this affects mostly the highlights. The black slider affects mostly the shadows. And this is your overall contrast. There are some other sliders in here that deal with these things in a different way. But the exposure slider and the black slider deals with your photo's overall contrast. So if I hold down the Option key on my Mac computer, on a Windows computer, I believe it's the Alt key. If I hold it down and I click on this exposure slider, the photo will go black, and I can see which areas of the photo are overexposed. And I can make adjustments left and right, again, to where I'm comfortable. If I saw that this is obviously entirely too bright, but if I saw that my subjects were overexposed, that would be a real clue that I need to lower that down. I'm going to put it back roughly where it was. Same thing with the black slider. I could slide it a little further to the left, and overall that's going to be way too much clipping, way too much shadow clipping. That doesn't look good at all, right? but I can hold my Option key down and adjust it to the point where I find it acceptable. And I could take it away entirely if I wanted to. I think that takes out a little too much contrast, so I think that's why I decided to do it about like that. But anyway, that's an objective way to see which parts of your image are overexposed or underexposed. I'll show you one more quick example. Okay, so in this photo, we can see that, hopefully you can see here, the bright areas from the light coming from the window behind her are overexposed, but my subject is not overexposed. I've got a little underexposure, a little clipping down here on her foot and her leg, and then some over here in the corner. So I'm comfortable with this overexposure because it's not on her. I might want to get rid of that underexposure. So I could do that probably by bringing this black slider up just a little bit. And yeah, I definitely took care of it right there. On her would be the main concern I would have. So if I got rid of it on my subject, I would feel good about that. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks so much.